What's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. It is the Muddy Puddle Squad here. If you guys are new to the channel, do not forget to click that big red subscribe button so you guys never miss out on future videos. Today we're going to be doing the big Q&A video that I promised you guys. I'm here in my old bedroom right now, so that's why the walls look a little bit nostalgic, I guess you could say. And I also have a fan on, and I have a bottle of water because I'm going to be talking a lot, so I'm probably going to get hot. I'm already sweating because it's really, really hot where I live. So hopefully I don't get too hot and need to stop the video. But we're going to try to go through all of these questions, or as many as we can. And before I begin, I do want to say one more thing. I really do appreciate all of you guys taking the time out of your day to come and ask questions for my Q&A. And I don't want to say this person's name because I don't know if I have his permission to use his title, but there is one person that suggested my Q&A video, so I wanted to say thank you very much. I really appreciate it to this person. That was a super good idea, so thank you so much. Credit all goes to you. And also, I'm not going to mention anybody's name in this video as well because of privacy reasons. So let's get right into the video. Let's start out with the questions. So, who do you think are the strongest future WOLP or World's Oldest Living Person candidates? So the strongest future candidates I would probably say right now are World's Oldest Living Person. So probably mostly female supercentenarians. And I would say the one that stands out to me is Marie-Rose Tessier. She really, really stands out to me as a strong future World's Oldest Person candidate. Another one that stands out to me quite a bit would probably be Julio Saldarriaga Hernandez. Now that's a very unusual one because most men don't ever become the world's oldest living person, but he does appear to be in superior health for his age, and I think that he could be the world's oldest living person someday. Now Manuel Ribeiro da Silva is actually probably likely the world's oldest living person right now, but that hasn't been proven. It's likely, it hasn't been proven, but yeah. So I think that probably Marie-Rose Tessier is a very strong future world's oldest living person candidate. In addition, I would say that Miyoko Hiroyasu seems like a very, very strong candidate. And I would probably say there was another Japanese woman. I forgot which one. I get them mixed up sometimes. But there was another one that seemed very, very strong to me. And in addition to that, I would probably also say Joao Marino Nieto also seems like a possible future world's oldest living person candidate. Given the fact right now, it seems like with his latest update, he was in superior health, having no health issues, having a very stable condition, and having only a history of anemia. He seems like he could go on far, but I mean, you know, some supercentenarians unfortunately experience a very rapid decline. So that's my opinion for that question. What would you say are the odds of Ethel Caterham reaching 116 and later 117? I would probably say that the odds of Ethel Caterham reaching 116 are very, very high given the fact that she only has, as of today, she only has 30 days left. And she seemed to be in okay health at the last update in May. So I think that she has a very high chance of reaching 116. But 117, that's a little bit much for me, because that means that she would not only be the first person of the UK to reach 116, but she would also be the first person of the UK to reach 117. And I feel like 117, while it is a stretch, it is possible. I would probably give her around a 35 to 40% chance of reaching 117. So what is the greatest milestone you want to achieve on YouTube? The greatest milestone that I want to achieve on YouTube is probably someday being able to make a profit off of my videos. I don't have to be rich off of it, but like I do someday want to be able to make a profit, like make a good, you know, enough money to buy like all of the stuff that I want to buy and save all the money from my job to like save up for something else. Who is my favorite YouTuber? So who's my favorite YouTuber? That is a very, very difficult question. There's quite a lot of YouTubers that I really, really enjoy watching, like IBX Toy Cat, Dark5. But I would probably have to say that my favorite YouTuber is probably the Super Hammer Brothers. I really, really enjoy watching the Super Hammer Brothers. So that's probably my favorite. So let's move on to the next question. Do you think Marie-Rose Tessier and Miyoko Hiroyasu have a chance of becoming world's oldest living person someday? So I actually, that was kind of what I said in a little bit in my last when I was answering a previous question, but I will go ahead and answer this one again. I would say that Maria Rose Tessier probably has a much higher chance than Miyoko Hiroyasu, but I do think that Miyoko Hiroyasu does have a chance of becoming world's oldest living person someday. They definitely have a better chance than the average super centenarian, I would say. Do you think Jonathan, the world's oldest tortoise, will reach 200 years old? So if you guys aren't familiar with Jonathan, Jonathan, the world's oldest living tortoise, I believe he was born in December 1832, making him a total of 192 years and around 180 days, because he's like halfway to his 193rd birthday. I don't know the exact number of days. I can't look it up while I'm filming, so I don't know the exact number of days, but he is more than halfway to his 193rd birthday. So, however, I will say this. Do I think he will reach 200 years old? I definitely think that there is a large chance. However, he may already be 200 years old, as his precise date of birth is not known. But when he was, quote-unquote, discovered in 1882, they were able to determine, by how mature his teeth and shell were, that he was at least 50 years old. So the absolute youngest he could be is 192 and a half, with a good chance of him likely being older. So he may actually already be 200, but I do think when we consider his, suspected birth date of December 1832, I think he definitely can reach 200 years old. It may be a little bit of a stretch, but I think he definitely can. Is there any animal species that stands out for his longevity? Absolutely. There are so many animal species that stand out for their longevity. Spiders in particular, because a lot of bugs don't live that long, but spiders can actually have really, really long lifespans. In fact, the oldest spider was the same age as the oldest cat ever recorded, and that is 43 years old. I'm given to understand that the spider was likely older, since the cat that I'm talking about has not fully been made public yet. There's only one public source, and this cat died exactly a month after its 43rd birthday. And I'm given to understand that the spider almost made it to 44. So the spiders can actually live longer than cats. So I would say spiders definitely stand out for their longevity. I'm afraid of spiders. I would never own one as a pet. But for those people that are not afraid of spiders, they make really, really long-lived pets. I would say that certain species of goldfish, I would say rough-eye rockfish are very, very, can have very, very long lives. Eels can have very, very long lives. Elephants can have very, very long lives, which is surprising considering their massive size. And Greenland sharks can also have very, very long lives. But in my opinion, the one species that really stands out for its longevity is sea worms. I believe that they're called sea worms. There's a certain type of sea worm. I forgot the exact species of it, but there is a type of worm that lives, a tube worm, yes, a sea tube worm, can live up to 300 years, which is one of the very, very few animals that I know of living that long. So if you get a pet that's a sea tube worm, certain type of species, they will likely be inherited by your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, which is really interesting. And yes, I put more greats in there just to be funny. Do I think Woody Woodbury will reach 102 next year? Now, I don't know too much about Woody Woodbury. He looks healthy. He looks healthy in some of his most recent photos. But I don't know too much about him. I haven't really gone into depth on his health condition. But I would say I would say that there's probably about maybe a 40% chance of him reaching 102 next year. Alright, so next question. Do I believe in time travel? No. No, I do not believe in time travel. There is a certain verse from the Bible, I believe it's the book of Matthew, that actually talks about time travel and debunks it, as people back then were fascinated by the idea of time traveling, going into the future, making predictions. And I believe it's when Jesus was preaching, Jesus said that, no man can predict the future, no man can travel through time. It's kind of all tied in right there. So do I believe in time travel? Absolutely not. The Bible completely debunks it. It is science fiction. Do I think Jean Calment's age was true? I personally call her just Jean Calment because it's much easier to say. But do I think her age was real? I would say, I don't know. I'm skeptical of it for a few reasons. In fact, the Bible, there's a controversy. There's certain controversies in the Bible, whereas we don't know precisely how long they considered a year to be at the time that God made man's maximum lifespan at 120 years. But that there's a controversy with that, and at the same time, he could have changed it later on. A lot of the Bible, it needs to be deciphered and picked apart. So I guess it is possible for people to live longer than 120 years. But I'm skeptical of Jeanne Calment's age, because the whole theory of her trading places with her daughter, that is a very, very wild theory, but it does have a certain ring of truth to it. It's odd that the color of her eyes changed, certain scars that she had changed, her signature changed, among other things as well, as these things can actually be chalked up to medical reasoning. However, the coincidence of all these occurring in one person, I believe, is quite very, very slim. And that right there is like astronomically low for all of these bizarre coincidences, all of these bizarre changes to occur for Jeanne Calment. And then on top of that, for her to live to be 122, and like one of the oldest people ever recorded, possibly the oldest ever, that is very, very strange. She's the oldest validated person, but there are some people who I believe could have been older than her. Of all the longevity claims over 119 years old, which ones do you think could be true? Ooh, I love this question. So, Shigechio Izumi's case is filled with a lot of controversy. I think it's very unlikely that a man made it to 120 back in the 1980s, which he claimed that he did. However, I do think that there are other longevity claims, female longevity claims over 119, that could be true. In fact, there is one, Goldie Poppy. Now, the strange thing about Goldie Poppy is that she actually has some documentation that proves she was 125 years old when she died in 2018. Again, it's very, very rare to live beyond 120. So it's kind of hard to speculate whether Goldie Poppy did make it to 125. I think that she was probably a little bit younger. Let's see, another case that I would say, Du Pinois is definitely a very plausible case to me. Batuli Lamichain is definitely another very plausible case to me. Maria de Colmor Geronimo does have proof that she was 129. However, I think that it could be the case of an identity switch with an older sibling. But I do think it's possible that Maria de Colmor Geronimo, while likely not 129, may have been in her early 120s as well. Do I think any other supercentenarians over 120 years old have ever existed who have never been made public? Now, that's a really, really interesting question. This could have been a fluke, but I did see an interview, which has been removed, talking about the thought of people living to be 120 years old. And this person, who is a researcher, said there's one case of a privately validated person who lived to be 130 years old on paper. I'm sorry, not validated. Okay, take it back what I said. Not validated, documented. Not validated. I take it back. But a 130-year-old person whose age was validated, documented on paper, not validated. Sorry, I keep messing that up. But 130 years old who was documented on paper. Now, this could have been a mistake, because sometimes during an interview, during a live interview, if you mess up, you can't really undo it. You can't really edit the video because it's live. So this could have been a fluke, and that part was edited out of the interview. So I think it may have just been a fluke, because why else would they have done that? But it was definitely interesting. Now, I do think that there are probably no 120-year-olds that have been validated and never been made public, maybe, but I doubt it. However, I do think that there have been other 120-year-olds that did exist and just didn't have enough proof to be validated or documented. For example, there is a man in Uganda who I believe is probably around 116 years old. Not much is known about this man, but given the memories that he has, I would say he's likely around 115 or 116. And if, there is a man who is around that age, that, I believe that there's a man around that age, there are probably many, many women that have made it to 120. Not many, but a few women that have made it to 120 and just didn't have the documents to back it up. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. What is your favorite animal? So my favorite animal is definitely a cat. There's a lot of animals that I like I like snails, I like earthworms, I like rabbits, mice, I like a lot of wide variety of animals, but I would have to say my favorite animal is definitely a cat. Hashtag cats rule, guys. What country are you from? I'm from Lithuania. Okay, I'm not from Lithuania. I'm just reading what the person said. So the person that asked me is the one from Lithuania. I'm not from Lithuania. I am from the United States. However, from my dad's side, I am Mexican, and from my mother's side, I am mostly European. So, let's see. Which male supercentenarians other than Manuel Ribeiro da Silva do you think has the most potential to surpass Anicio Rodriguez Alves' record? So which male supercentenarian? I would probably have to go with Joao Marino Nieto. And only, like I said, he is in very superior health. We know a full panel. I know a full panel of his health, all of his doctor's records. I know a full panel of all of his health records. And I know he is in superior health. Probably with the exception of having anemia, which is a very mild blood disorder, and it really doesn't affect the quality of someone's lifespan unless it is like extremely severe or untreated, which he has actually recovered completely from. He has a history of it, but he has recovered completely from. And I believe that he is probably in the same health that Juan Vicente Perez Mora was at the same age. But unfortunately, you know, some supercentenarians experience a very rapid decline. So I hope that, you know, I pray that that's not the case with Joao Marino Nieto. I do feel like he definitely has a chance to break Anicio's record, as does Julio Saldarriaga, as does Concaizao dos Santos, even though he's only 109. Pedro Maria Molina Marquez is very, very strong for his age. Now, Kenneth Weeks is also very strong for his age, but Kenneth Weeks comes from a country where he would have to surpass the previous record holder by nearly 6 years, and I don't see that happening. So, probably the ones that I mentioned, probably the ones that I mentioned are the most likely candidates to beat Anicio Rodriguez Alves' record. Possibly even Kiyotaka Mizuno, but that I think would be a stretch. Which supercentenarian or even centenarian in general do you think has the most potential to surpass Gene Kelman's record? I'll be honest, none. As of right now, none of them I don't think have the potential to surpass Gene Kelman's record. However, I do think that there are probably a few Japanese women. I would need to research it more though. A few Japanese women and maybe a couple of Brazilian women that do have the potential to surpass Kane Tanaka's record. And probably most likely Nabi Tajima's record, but not Gene Kelman's record. So there's that answer to that question. So the next question that comes in, do you like spaghetti? Sort of. Do I like spaghetti? So spaghetti by itself? Probably not. But spaghetti and meatballs or spaghetti and tomato sauce, I definitely do like. However, I do get a lot of heartburn from the tomato sauce, so I can't quite eat too much tomato sauce. So next question, what do you think of Pedro Maria Molina Marquez? So what do I think of his case in terms of longevity? I think that Pedro Maria Molina Marquez, he definitely has a high potential because he appears to me like he's in very, very good health. He appears, you know, at his size, he appears like he has not lost a lot of weight, which is a very, very good sign. He's very mobile for his age, able to stand unaided. And he has unusually good reflexes for a supercentenarian. So I think that Pedro Maria Molina Marquez can likely make it to probably around 113. Now 117 is a stretch for any male supercentenarian, but he definitely is one of the most likely in my opinion. Next question. What is my favorite flavor of ice cream? Ooh, that's a hard one. Guys. So my favorite flavor of ice cream, there's so many different flavors of ice cream. I don't know if I could actually choose one. I do love Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, cookie dough, birthday cake. Those are probably my 3 top favorites. They're probably all about equal. Like, I mean, if I had to choose one, I would probably say Reese's Peanut Butter Cup because I absolutely love the chocolate/peanut butter mixture of that ice cream. Next question. What's your favorite breed of cat? So my favorite breed of cat, I would probably have to say, is Oh man, you guys are asking me some tough questions. I would probably have to say is a Siamese. Siamese is my favorite breed of cat. However, a Maine Coon comes in close at second place. Okay, so next question. Wow, this guy asked a lot of questions. So I will try to go through all of them, and let's see how many we can go through. Some of these questions, I feel like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but some of these questions I feel like were generated by AI. I think you used an AI generator. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying I think that you may have used an AI generated system, because some of these questions seem like they're very like precise. Like, what defines a supercentenarian? Well, somebody that's made it to 110 years or over. Now, there's a controversy saying somebody that's made it to equivalent to exactly 110 years times the amount of days, because some people who are 109 years and 365 days old are actually older than, or who has lived more days than a person who's 110 because of leap day. However, I disagree. A supercentenarian, if you take the prefixes of that word, it actually means someone who has lived longer than 110 years. So somebody that is 109 years and 365 days, even though they may be older than somebody that is 110 years and 0 days, I totally disagree that they should be considered a supercentenarian, because they're not 110. Even though they live more days, they're not 110. So there's my answer to that. But some of these questions, like, what is the current oldest verified living person? I feel like that was AI generated, as that, of course, is Ethel Caterham. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the questions that I believe may have been AI generated and get to the more precise questions. No disrespect. So let's see. What factors help humans reach 110 years or older? So what factors help humans reach 110 years or older? I would probably say a combination of 30% genetics, and the rest I would probably say lifestyle, diet, and exercise. So there are a lot of very healthy nutrients that most people miss, like quercetin, which is found in onions, piperine, which is found in black pepper, lycopene found in tomatoes, omega-3s, which are found in things like mackerel, salmon, flaxseed, walnuts. A lot of people miss those healthy minerals and compounds and vitamins because they're not found in everyday common foods. Like, I don't believe that you can get things like piperine and quercetin from regular everyday foods like a turkey sandwich that you would buy at the grocery store. That's why these nutrients, I think if you incorporate a wide variety of foods that are very healthy, have lots of antioxidants, healthy compounds and minerals, that probably helps a big support in reaching a very, very old age. Getting enough sleep, and definitely getting enough exercise, which is something that I struggle with. So, let me go take a water break here. Alright, next question. Why do women tend to outlive men at extreme ages? So, I haven't really researched that too much, but I'll give you my opinion on it. I can give you my opinion, I can't give you scientific fact. But my opinion is that a lot more men tend to die in wars. A lot more men tend to die in accidents. Because, I mean, men, especially young men, they've got like this feeling where they want to be like Mr. Tough Guy, they want to be like Mr. Macho. So they do things to impress, like driving at very, very high speeds, doing dangerous flips off of poles or whatever. And a lot of men end up injured, which reduces their lifespan, or unfortunately they die in some of these accidents. And on top of that, women are usually smaller and they weigh less. As you know, people that weigh more live less than people who weigh less, live more, weigh more, live less, basically. So yeah, the average woman weighs like 165 pounds in America, while the average man weighs like 199 pounds. So because women weigh less, they live longer. Is there a genetic link among supercentenarians? It appears that some of them that have been studied, there have been found a genetic link, as some genetics are just better. Basically your whole body, your genetics, think of it as like a code system. I'm not a techie guy, so this may not make any sense because I'm the one that's explaining it to you. But think of your body as like a coding system, and if the code is red, the better the code is red, the longer you will live. And think of the code as being your genetics and your DNA makeup. So I would say that around 30% of it is genetic, but a lot of it does have to do with lifestyle. What role does calorie intake play in extreme longevity? Now, there are 3 male supercentenarians that I can think of that actually did calorie restriction for most of their lives and lived extremely long. And those 3 males are Jerome Kimura, Walter Bruning, and Kiyotaka Misuno. So I believe that that definitely plays a big role in extreme longevity. Are there certain diseases supercentenarians are more immune to? Now, I would say not immune, but they have a very, very high resilience rate, such as cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes. As some supercentenarians, like Jean Calment ate chocolate her whole life. She never got diabetes. Tomas Pinales Fiwerio smoked his whole life. He never got cancer. He did get lung disease, but he never got cancer. So I think that, some supercentenarians, because of their genetic makeup, they are more resilient to certain diseases, but they are definitely not immune to. What is the biological limit of human life? I'm assuming you're asking my opinion, because that is not a question that has actually been answered, ever. That's not been ever figured out. It's estimated to be between 125 and 135, but I personally believe it's in that range. I personally think that it's maybe around 128, 129, if we assume that the Bible, there's a whole controversy with the Bible. According to the Bible, it's close to 120 when you account for the certain number of days that's given in a later place of the Bible. But that's a very, very deep question. I would say probably between 119.5 and 129.5 is what I would say. That's just my opinion. But, can modern medicine extend life past 120 years? I don't think so. I doubt it, because if you go to the Bible, I may not be quoting the correct verse, but Luke 12:25 says, no man can extend his life by not even an hour, or a meter of his height. So I believe that modern medicine cannot extend life past 120, or can't extend. Let me put it a better way. Modern medicine cannot extend life past the biological limit that God has put in place. It just can't. Sorry. Are supercentenarians mentally sharp until death? Some of them are. There was a female supercentenarian. I thought it was Mabel Ma, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But there was a female supercentenarian that was no longer lucid at the age of 100, and she lived to be 113. So the last 13 years of her life, she was not lucid. And that, to me, that's a miracle, because usually somebody at that age that loses their lucidity doesn't live much past it. But the fact that she still made it to 113 was a miracle to me. So not all supercentenarians are mentally sharp, although the vast majority of them are. How accurate are age claims from developing countries? From very well developing countries, concluded by the Global Development Index, I would say that most age claims are very, very accurate. I would say probably more than 90%, probably close to 100%, although some do slip through the cracks. Most age claims are highly accurate from very well developed countries. Why are age verification standards so strict? Because, we don't want to just validate anybody. There's a lot of cases that are semi or partially documented, but the problem is, because we are missing the early life documentation, there is high potential for a sibling switch or a family member, an accidental identity switch, and that's why age verification standards are so strict. If we just went by partial documentation, we would have people that were really, really old verified. In fact, this is crazy, but there was a hoax in the media where they actually got a supposedly 50,000-year-old mummy from Russia. I believe it was from Russia, 50,000-year-old mummy, and were able to achieve partial documentation because it was just made up. It was fake. So, we know for sure nobody's made it to 50,000 for several reasons. The Earth isn't even that old. From a creationist point of view, I'm a strong, devout creationist. The Earth is no more than 7,000 years old. So, let's see. Do centenarian offspring live longer than average? They may have a better roll of the dice, so I would say yes. However, it's not common. It's a little more common than a normal family who does not have any centenarians, but it is not extremely common. It's they have a bit better. The odds are a bit better, but it's not enough to say they have a great chance. Let's see. Does belief in God or spirituality affect longevity? Absolutely. If I remember correctly, Christian Mortensen was an atheist. But a lot of supercentenarians, the vast majority of them, do have some religious faith that they, put their faith in. Are religious supercentenarians more likely to report peace of mind? Absolutely, yes. Do cultures that honor the elderly foster longer lives? Not entirely. I mean, cultures that honor the elderly can't quite change the genetic makeup that those elderly people have. However, they can prevent the elderly from succumbing to disease or illness. As in very, very poorly developed countries, some elderly people are just cast out, on the sidewalk whenever they are ill. And of course, that does shorten their lifespan, but it does not change. Bad treatment of elderly people. Bad, poor treatment of elderly people does shorten their lifespan, and good treatment, good cultures that honor the elderly do lengthen potential lifespan, but it does not change the epigenetic markers of longevity. Could a person like Moses really have lived to 120? Absolutely. The Bible is one. I believe in the Bible. I stand by the Bible 100%. And I do believe with all my heart, soul, and being that Moses did in fact live to be 120. And at the age of 120, he was still, as the Bible quotes, mighty. So let's see. Are biblical lifespans symbolic or literal? Literal. I believe that they are 100% literal. Did any other prophets other than Moses live over 100? Absolutely. Job was another one. Abraham, Isaac, Terah. There are so many. Peleg, Arphaxad. There are so many biblical prophets that did indeed live to be over 100. How do Christian and Jewish texts describe old age? I'm not too familiar with Jewish texts, but Christian texts, however, they do describe old age as a crown. They say gray hair is a crown of glory. And old age is actually even considered a promise in the book of Exodus, I believe, where it says, those who honor thy father and thy mother will have a long life in the land. So, definitely. So, let's see. Who is Jerome Kimura? Jerome Kimura was the oldest validated man in history. Validated, the keyword here is validated. Who lived to be 116 years and 54 days. Why is Kimura considered the gold standard for male longevity? Because he holds the record. What was Jerome Kimura's diet like? Now, Jerome Kimura's diet, he had a very Asian cuisine, which considered of very, very healthy fish, such as mackerel, which provided lots of omega-3s. It was high in green vegetables and rice. And, of course, he practiced calorie restriction. There's a certain Japanese tradition, I believe it's called Hamahachi-bu, where they only eat until they're 50%, 60%, 70%, or 80% full. Who are any men on track to surpass Kimura's 116? Yes, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm actually surprised that his age record has not been broken, considering he has held the record for over 12 years. And the record may have actually been standing for nearly 16 years if Anicio Rodriguez Alves' age is true. So, to answer your question, are any men on track to surpass Kimura's 116? Definitely the biggest and most potential is Manuel Ribeiro da Silva, with, I would say, other candidates probably being Pedro Maria Molina Marquez, Juan Marino Nieto, Julio Saldariaga, in no specific order. And I'm sure there's a few more as well. Kiyotaka Mizuno. Has anyone come close to beating Kimura's record? Not verified. Not verified. Juan Vicente Perez Mora came within a year and 100 days. Within a year and a half. But unfortunately, he did not beat his record. Will someone live to be 117 and verified? I'm assuming this is an AI question because many people have lived to be 117 and are verified. Misao Okawa, Kane Tanaka, Sarah Nas, Lucilo Randon. I believe you mean, will a man live to be 117 and be verified? I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. In fact, I think it's definitely going to happen in the next decade. Why are there so few male supercentenarians? We kind of went over this because women tend to live longer than men based on factors like a lower weight, a healthier lifestyle, less prone to accidents and war. So that's why so few men live to be supercentenarians. Who will break the records? I'm sorry, dude. These are AI-generated questions. Is there any living male who could reach 116? I would say, is there any living male who could reach it? Like, provided that if we include that Manolo Ribeiro da Silva, provided that his age is true, that we don't consider him because he is 116, then I would say Joao Marino Nieto, Julio Saldariaga Hernandez, and maybe Pedro Maria Molina Marquez and Kyotaka Mizuno. Okay, so let's see. Does Joao Marino Nieto have the potential to reach 120? No, I doubt it. I think he has the potential to make it to 117, but I think that is probably a stretch. That at 117, I would say around for Joao Marino Nieto, 117 and around probably 100 days is, I would say, the cutoff for the maximum for him. And that's his maximum potential. I think that would be very unlikely, but I think it is his maximum potential. Will Joao Marino Nieto surpass Jerome and Kimura? Very unlikely, but definitely possible. I don't think Elias Yokan and Kenneth Weeks and most other male supercentenarians will surpass Kimura, but I do think that Joao Marino Nieto is one of the few that has a chance. What would make Joao Marino Nieto a historic case? If he makes it to 115. Why 115? Because 115, there are so few men over 115, it would make him the first 115-year-old man. If Manuel Ribeiro da Silva's age never becomes validated, it will make him the first 115-year-old man since Jerome and Kimura reached that age in 2012. How accurate are Joao Marino Nieto's birth records? 100% accurate. Does Joao Marino Nieto have centenarian relatives? I don't know. What are the odds of a man reaching 121 this century? I would say very unlikely. I don't think that a man will reach 121. Well, maybe. I think maybe, but it would probably be very late in the century. I could see a man born in the 1980s or the 1990s reaching 121. Will we see a male live to 120 before 2100? Maybe, like I said, maybe. I think that there could be one man in the 1980s that might make it to 120, but I think that this is very unlikely. So I think possibly, but I wouldn't say likely. Will someone beat Jean Calment's 122 record? Absolutely. I think that there could be a woman that makes it to 123 by the end of the century, but I wouldn't say too much higher than that. What's more likely, someone living to 125 or space tourism? Someone living to 125. I'm so happy that you asked that question. I would love to talk about that in a future video, but I believe that outer space isn't what you think it is. And I don't believe that humans will ever tour the galaxy. That's just my opinion, ever. I don't even think that we'll ever go to Mars. I highly, highly doubt that humans will ever set foot on Martian land. And if they do, it's going to be a hoax. Could AI help us live longer than any previous generation? I think AI is creepy, so I really don't want AI's help. But I mean, I guess if they could help us live longer than any previous generation, I guess I would. But could they? I guess they could. I really don't see how. Right now, I mean, if it greatly improves, maybe. But I really don't see how right now. Will cryogenics lead to future supercentenarians? Now, this is going to be super interesting. Cryogenics. Cryogenics. I don't know much about cryogenics, but I will say this. The Bible said it is appointed for man to die once and then the judgment. I don't believe in reincarnation. And I think that cryogenetics kind of go on the whole, like, you know, you die and then you be brought back to life. You know, you're frozen to death, basically. No, I don't think that cryogenics will ever be a thing. Can a super rich person buy a longer life? No. Like I said, maybe they can extend their life by making healthier choices, as they would be more likely to have the money to buy, say, healthier foods, maybe have access to healthier exercise, you know, a healthier gym. But I don't think that they will be able to buy a longer life, literally. You know, they can't buy, I don't think that they would be able to buy a guarantee that they would live any longer. As God decides when you die, and there's no changing it. How will climate change affect extreme longevity? I'll be honest with you, I think climate change is false. Because, you know, the way the world has been since God has spoken into existence. Yeah, we have gone through periods of ice ages. But climate change, I don't believe in climate change. Because it's changed so slightly over the course since the world has been spoken into existence. It will never, never affect. Humans won't live long enough to see the Earth change that much. Well, could nanomedicine enable lifespans be 130? I don't know what nanomedicine is, but I would say no. Based on the laws that God has put in place and what I believe that human potential is, I would say no. Will someone born in 2025 live past 150? No. Will we have a 130-year-old human by 2200? Possibly, but when you get to be 130, that's kind of like, that's pushing the limits that God put in place. So I don't think that, I doubt it, but maybe. Would you want to live to be 115? Absolutely. If I can see, if I have my vision, then absolutely. At what age does quality of life typically decline? Now, at what age it depends on the person. Some people, I mean, I've read of cases of some people, their quality of life declines in their 40s, 50s, 60s because they develop lots of considered old age problems like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, things like that, because they didn't take care of themselves when they were young. So, I mean, for a person that took very, very poor care of themselves, had a very unhealthy diet, didn't exercise, overweight, took drugs, somebody like that, their quality of life could decline in their 40s or even 30s. But somebody who has taken very, very good care of themselves, like Mike Fremont, I mean, he's 102, and he still has, I think he celebrated his birthday, actually. I think he might be 103 now. But he has a very, very high quality of life for his age. I mean, Jerome Kimura was fully independent till he was 111. Emma Morano was fully independent till she was 114. And, Kane Tanaka could still walk at 118. So it just depends on how well you took care of yourself. If you could live to 120, what would you do? What would I do? I would enjoy my life. I would enjoy my life. I would eat lots of good food. I would hang out with friends and family. I would enjoy my life. Is it more important to live longer or better? Now, I'm not going to answer that question because that's based on each person's personal opinion. And that's a very deep question. I could talk about that for about an hour. So I'm going to skip that. But that's a very deep question. That's very interesting. I really appreciate that question. That's interesting. Would immortality ruin the meaning of life? Now, now here's a problem that I have with immortality. You guys may think I'm crazy for saying this, but I'll explain it. Immortality does exist. Immortality does absolutely exist. It's just most people don't take what I would consider the immortality pathway in life. Because all these scientists that try to find what's the word? I can't think of the word. All these scientists try to find, the secret cure, the secret elixir for immortality. And immortality, it's told to you guys right there in the Bible, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him does not perish, but has everlasting life. So if you believe in Jesus Christ and have accepted him as your Savior, you are guaranteed to be immortal in heaven. Maybe not at this address that you are currently living at, but when you have changed your address to the kingdom of heaven, you will absolutely be immortal. And that's very, very interesting because, these people think of the world as immortal. They have a mortal world. They have a mortal view of the world where they don't believe in God, they don't believe in Jesus, so they think that this life is it. And that's why they want to extend their lives forever, which is obviously impossible. God did not create us to be able to discover that kind of technology. He is the only one that possesses that kind of wisdom, that kind of technology, and that kind of intelligence. And humans will never be able to become immortal on their own. That's why he sent his son Jesus Christ to die on the cross to give us the gift of eternal life. We cannot have eternal life unless it is through Jesus Christ. So, what career paths could someone have if they lived 120 years? Any career paths. I mean, a career path that had a high amount of exercise and physical activity may help you to live longer, such as being a blacksmith, a bricklayer, a farmer. But definitely, I mean, you could have any career path. You could do something on the computer all day. Real quick, I'm going to pause the video and turn off my fan. Hopefully you guys can hear me better. It's really hot in my room right now. Alright, so next question. This is a really bizarre question. Could someone have 3 families in one lifetime? What do you mean by 3 families? Do you mean by like 3 wives? Or do you mean 3 generations? Because the most living generations of one person is actually 7. I believe the first person who achieved this feat was Augusta Bunge. I don't remember what state she was from. She was from the United States, but she was the first person to achieve this milestone of having 7 living generations. There have been others, but she is the first and the youngest great-great-great-great-grandmother. But if you need 3 wives, I guess somebody could have 3 wives in one lifetime. I don't, 3 wives at the same time? Or do you mean 3 wives like 3 wives like, you outlive 3 wives? I'm not sure what you mean. But, in the Quran gives men the option of having 2, 3, or 4 wives. So a lot of Muslim men have 3 wives. They have 3 families with 3 wives just because that's what the Quran says. But I guess, I don't understand your question, but I would say yes. What ethical issues arise when humans live beyond 110? Ethical issues, I would probably say the only ethical issues that I could think of is making sure that their age is fully validated, they have all the necessary documents, and that they are not a case of accidental or intentional identity switch or theft. Should a retirement age rise if people live to be 120? No. I don't think so, because I think, once there shouldn't be a retirement age once you, in my opinion, I believe once that you have, saved up enough money, and once that I guess your pension, that's a good point there that I just thought of. Your pension should stay the same. Your pension should be 65 years old, or even 62 years old regardless, but I think it's up to you to decide if you want to retire early, and I think retiring early should be definitely an option. Could we still learn new things past 110? Yes, Jerome Kimura is an example of that. He actually started learning English at the age of 115. So, interestingly enough, Jerome Kimura is a living example of that. There was a female supercentenarian from Japan that learned calligraphy at 112. I believe there was a female supercentenarian also from Japan that learned how to surf the internet as a supercentenarian. And I know that there have been a few more as well. I can't quite think of any right now, but absolutely, we could still learn new things past 110. Learning something new could be as simple as learning that, I don't know, learning something new. It could be as simple as learning that cocoa is healthy for you. That wouldn't be too difficult to explain to a supercentenarian. I don't think because of certain language barriers and certain a decline in cognitive function, I don't think that they could learn something new, because it's harder to learn things as you get older. I don't think that they could learn something new such as rocket science or software development, but they could absolutely learn something new like Jerome and Kimura learned English, or they could learn how to paint, something like that. Let's see some more questions. What signs would show Joao Marino Nieto is aging slower than normal? So what signs? What do you mean, what signs? To me, I think that he has a very slow decline. It seems like, I've seen pictures of him I've seen one picture of him when he was middle-aged, and it seems like he is aging slower than normal, just because he looks to be younger than a person of his age. And he also, he seems very, he has a lot of, what's the word? I can't think of the word. He seemed very strong as a middle-aged man, as did Benvenido Ferreira de Oliveira. Will Joao Marino Nieto break national records in Brazil? I think it's very likely that he could. In fact, because Anicio and Manuel are not validated, he may actually be, hopefully, by the grace of God, by God's will, he will actually break the record quite soon. As the oldest Brazilian man right now that's verified is Maximiano José dos Santos. I believe his age was 113. Sorry guys, I'm all these questions are kind of frazzling my brain. But I believe he was 113 and 62 days. Could Joao Marino Nieto be studied by longevity scientists? Absolutely. They could. I think if his family has the okay with it, they could definitely go to Brazil and study him, ask him questions. We know a lot about him, what his lifestyle is like, what his diet is like, but they could still go over there and ask him more questions. Just ask him, what his daily life, what his daily routine is like. I think that'd be really, really cool. If Joao reaches 117, how will the media respond? I think that the media, it will totally just blow up the media. If Manuel sadly does not make it to 117, or if his age is debunked, which I highly doubt. I think Manuel's age, I believe that Manuel's age is around 99% likely to be true. But if his age is not true, which I doubt, and Joao does reach 117, then I think it will totally just, it'll be a massive, he'll get massive publicity. He'll be all over the media because he will be indeed the first validated man to make it to his 117th birthday. What will the world be like when someone turns 130? The first 130-year-old person, I think, will probably be like gain massive publicity, be all over the media. It'll be a major milestone. It'll be a major breakthrough, and I think it'll definitely be amazing if somebody makes it to 130. Can an AI model Joao Marino Nieto's potential death date? No, absolutely not. AI, no. No, this is why I think AI is creepy, because there are people out there that believe that AI can do this stuff. When the Bible says, no man knoweth the hour, it's basically no man knoweth the hour, no man can predict his lifespan, no man can add any measurement to his lifespan. So absolutely not. AI will never have that capability. Should people over 110 receive global recognition? Absolutely. If they are fully validated by an organization, they should be put into the media. However, we're getting to the point that 110-year-old women aren't so rare anymore. They're still very rare, but they're not as rare as they used to be. So I think the minimum age for women to receive global recognition, I think, should be up to maybe 112 or 113. But I mean, I still think that they should receive some sort of global recognition. What would we ask someone who has lived 120 years? How'd you live that long? What's your daily life? What's your daily routine like? What was your lifestyle like? Things like that. What was the world like when you were young? Could Joao Marino Nieto inspire a new wave of health studies? Absolutely. I think he absolutely could. That kind of is like a previous question. If longevity scientists were to go down there and ask him some questions, if his family were to give consent for them to study him, I think that he could absolutely inspire a new wave of health studies. Just maybe they could take. I don't know how they would. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how they would do that, but maybe they could take samples of his DNA and just study it. They've already done that with other supercentenarians, and they do have a better. Kind of like how I explained, like how you think of your body as like, a coding system, and think of how well it reads the code, with the code being your genetics and your DNA. I think his body probably reads that code very, very well. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining it well. It's just I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I can't quite tell you. I don't know all the language for what, I don't know the exact language. I can't put it in language for you, but that's about what I can tell you. I can tell you my opinions, and I can tell you what I know. Okay, who are your 3 favorite living supercentenarians from 1911? So from 1911, I would have to say, so if I were to narrow it down to 3, I would probably say Miyoko Hiroyasu, Shigeko Kagawa, and Bonita Gibson are probably my favorite 3 supercentenarians from 1911, living supercentenarians from 1911 anyway. Do you think Elias Siocan will become a world's oldest living man? I doubt it. He's very frail and in very, very poor condition, unfortunately, and I don't think that he has the potential to live longer than Joao Marino Nieto or Justino Livino Ferreira or even Manuel Ribeiro da Silva if his age is validated. So I would have to say, unfortunately for him, no. Do you think the second person to reach 120 will be someone born before 1925? I think that the second person to reach 120 will be somebody born in the 1910s decade. That's just my opinion. But probably, definitely, almost certainly, in my opinion, before 1925. Because I think it's so rare. I think it's more rare if we don't have somebody reach 120 by that time, because a record has already stood for so long. I mean, records don't stand for that long. And, nobody's even come close to the record. And nobody, Kane Tanaka's only surpassed Theranos by 10 days. I'm surprised that there's not more people validated that have gotten closer, that are, 117 and 300 days, the whole first 340 days of 118th year, and closer to 120. But I do absolutely think that somebody born before 1925, and probably even before 1920, will reach 120. Do you think someone born in 1931 or earlier will surpass Calment? No, that's too soon. But I do think absolutely somebody born before 1931 or in 1931 or earlier will make it to 120. What do you think Luo Mayen, Manuel Garcia Hernandez, Sorimejo, and Francisca Susano's real ages were. Interesting question. So I believe Luo Maijin's age was debunked, and I think she was like 99, 101, 102, 103, somewhere around there, but I don't want to say for sure. So don't quote me on that. I will have to do my research, and I might put that in a newer video. I believe she was debunked, but I'm not sure. So don't take that as literal. However, Manuel Garcia Hernandez's age was indeed 100% debunked. And he is actually 30 years younger than the age claimed, born on 24th of December, 1926. So he is actually 98 years old, not 128. Sorimejo, I think he was probably between 105 and 117, with 117 being a very unlikely stretch. But I do think that Sorimejo probably did have the most high chance of being a real supercentenarian. Now, Francisca Susano, there is a possibility. She's not fully debunked, although there is a high possibility her age was mixed up with her supposed 106-year-old daughter. Although that has not been proven, it's just a theory. I think it's definitely likely, because 124, that's too soon after Calment. But I mean, it is possible that her age was true, although I do think it is highly unlikely. So why has Manuel Ribeiro da Silva not been validated yet? So there is a lot. I can't say too much about this case because some of it has remained private. But they were able to discover that he was indeed alive on the 25th of April, 1914, which would make him at least 111. Now, his age at that time isn't known. Okay, his age at that time is not known. So he very well could have been born in 1909. His marriage certificate supports him being born in 1909. His ID card all the way back from 1983 supports him being born in 1909. And I think that it's very likely that he will be validated in the future. His entire family history has been put together, and an identity switch, although not ruled out, has been deemed very unlikely. So I do think with 99% certainty, it is likely that he is 116 like he claims. Although I will say with 100% certainty, he is at least 111. There is a controversy between his exact date of birth. His ID card says he was born on the 19th of May, although his family claims that he was born on the 19th of March, and it was miscopied onto his wedding certificate, which was later then miscopied onto his ID card, which, I mean, could be true. There is no proof that he was born on March 19th, just from what his family says. There's no actual definite proof, just things that are speculated that we might have the documents, supposed documents that people have found, but none of those have actually ever come into the light. He is indeed probably 116. There's another controversy that shows he may have been born on May 29th and was actually 2 days younger than one Vicente Perez Mora, but that too is also speculation, because, these people have said that they've talked to certain researchers, but, a lot of this could be the May 29th part, could be online trolling of people impersonating researchers. I don't know. It's never been discussed on by a reliable organization, so I can't quite tell you that part. But I will say that it is likely he is indeed 116 years old and is the world's oldest living man, with the best potential to be 117 out of any of them, in my opinion. He could still stand at the time of his claimed 116th birthday and was in good condition with no health problems. Anyway, next question. Who are your favorite 3 living supercentenarians from 1912? I would probably have to say Miho Kumagai, Joao Marino Nieto, and probably Sumiko Mori. Yeah, I would probably have to say Sumiko Mori. But Yukiko Honda's a cool supercentenarian, but she was born in 1913. And yeah, I would have said the mysterious anonymous woman, Japanese Brazilian woman who was born in 1912, but unfortunately she has just passed away. Aquino Ueda is definitely another one of my favorite supercentenarians from 1912. But definitely Joao Marino Nieto is in my top 3 favorite living supercentenarians from 1912. So let's see. What's your favorite living male supercentenarian right now? And what is your favorite living female supercentenarian? So my favorite living male supercentenarian right now, I would probably have to say, is Joao Marino Nieto. And my favorite living female supercentenarian, I would probably have to say, is Ethel Caterham. Although I do like Palladia Noia from Romania, who's Romania's oldest living woman. So I think Palladia Noia is probably my favorite living female supercentenarian. And with that, we have finished the questions just on time because I can only record 59 minutes and 59 seconds with my camera. So that actually worked out perfectly. Like, that was not intentional. That just worked out really, really perfectly. So thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to have to go rest my voice because my voice is tired from talking so much. But thank you guys for watching my video. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to leave questions so that I can answer them. And I hope you guys enjoyed my first Q&A. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.